Hello and welcome to Jurassic Reviews. On this episode, we'll be taking a look at another X Plus gigantic Godzilla. That figure is the favorite Sculptors line Gigantic Godzilla 1954. Before we begin, here's a quick look at the large box it comes in. This Godzilla stands 19 inches tall and is about 30 inches long from head to tail, so it's among the larger X Plus gigantic Godzillas. I want to point out real quick that this is the standard version. The Rick version comes with a set of artillery pieces. I originally had the Rick version pre-ordered, but switched to the standard. Those cannons, while cool, just didn't seem to be worth the $150 to $200 price difference. I do want to go over an issue with my figure before we take a look at the sculpt. The issue I had was with the seam around the hand. On the left hand, the seam was completely ripped open. Luckily, some super glue fixed it up, but it's still something I didn't really want to see on a figure like this. My Rick Gigantic 2019 had a similar issue around his dorsal plates. I usually don't have anything negative to say about X Plus, and I get that things happen in shipping, and not everything can be perfect, but I hope issues like this don't continue to pop up. It's not the end of the world by any means, but it does feel a little disappointing sometimes. Anyway, onto the sculpt. I believe the kit they used for this is a pretty old one, and I remember seeing people post pictures of theirs around the time this was announced. I think X Plus did a good job bringing this to vinyl form. This isn't their first Gigantic 54, as they did have a Sakai 54 a few years ago, but I do think this one's the more impressive of the two. I do not own the Sakai version, but from what I remember the reception to that one was mixed. And just looking at comparisons online between them, I think this new favorite Sculptors line is a bit better. But really I'd probably have to see the Sakai version in person for a final judgment on that. The scales all over this figure look awesome, with the scar-like and tree bark texture. The dorsal plates also look great, with some awesome texture work there as well. He's in a more neutral pose, with the tail going straight back behind the figure. This is basically the pose I think of when I think of the 54 Godzilla. Also worth noting is the tail curves up just a little bit, and this figure does indeed come with a tail stand, though a much smaller one than normal. He's sort of like the Gigantic 62, in that he can be displayed without the tail stand and look just fine. For me personally though, I'll be using the tail stand. The head on this figure looks fantastic, and I love how different he looks head on, but really any angle looks great. Details like the large eyes, nose, ears, and individually sculpted teeth are well done. There are some visible seams around the back of the head and the bottom of the neck, but it's not too much different than most Gigantics, and most of the time you don't even notice them. There's also one dorsal plate that is leaning a bit, the larger one on his back. I am not entirely sure if it's supposed to be like this or not, as my 30cm 93 Rick had a similar issue like this, and my standard one was normal. I haven't really seen too many shots of the back of people's figures on the Facebook group to compare yet, so I'm not sure if it was intentional. I think in the movie his dorsal plates move around a bit, so that might have been what they were going for. Moving on to the paint, it's about what you'd expect for a 54 Godzilla, as far as the colors. It's mostly a darker gray with some lighter gray as well. That pretty much applies to everything, including the dorsal plates. On the head, the eyes are painted white with black pupils, and stick out really well. The teeth are also painted a dark gray that transitions to white. And there's also his tongue, which is painted gray and really hard to see. So overall, it's a solid paint job. I don't really have any complaints here. Before I give my rating for this figure, here's a comparison with other figures. Here it is with the gigantic Godzilla 2019 Rick version. Here it is with the gigantic Mechagodzilla 1974. Here it is with the gigantic Burning Godzilla. And finally, here it is with some of my other 1954 Godzillas. For a rating out of 10, I give this one a 9.5. It's definitely a contender for my figure of the year, and as of right now is probably my number one choice. Though he's probably going to have a pretty tough challenger from Spiral Studios soon. The sculpt is awesome, and the paint job is flawless. If you're looking for a large and impressive representation of the 1954 Godzilla, I can't think of a better figure. I know a few places like AwesomeCollector.com still have some in stock at the time of this video, so if you're interested, get it while you still can. These gigantic figures seem to skyrocket in price a year or so after their release. So yeah, I recommend this one. And that does it for the X Plus Favorite Sculptors line, Gigantic Godzilla 1954. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.